Don't get in the car! The scream sliced through the air like a siren. The millionaire froze mid-step, one foot hovering over the curb. That voice, raw, desperate, and unmistakably terrified, had just changed everything. It was supposed to be a simple afternoon. Brandon Ashcroft, 39 years old, tech mogul and media darling, had just stepped out of a charity gala in downtown Atlanta. He had shaken 100 hands, given his $1 million smile, and pledged another $250,000 to a youth education fund. Cameras loved him, the internet worshipped him, and he couldn't wait to leave. As his black Bentley pulled up beside him, he reached into his pocket for his phone, preparing to respond to an investor's text. That's when he heard her. "Don't get in the car!" It stopped him cold. The voice came from across the street, sharp and shaking. Heads turned. Brandon did too. There, standing barefoot on the sidewalk, was a young black girl, no older than 15. Her hoodie was stained, her jeans ripped at the knees. But what caught his attention wasn't her appearance. It was her eyes, wide with panic, and locked onto his. "Sir, please, don't!" she screamed again, pointing at his car like it was alive. The valet looked confused. Passers-by began filming. A few people laughed nervously. A homeless kid yelling at a millionaire. It had all the ingredients for social media gold. Brandon hesitated. The driver stepped out of the Bentley, sunglasses on, stoic as ever. "Mr. Ashcroft, is everything all right?" The girl ran into the street straight toward him. "Please listen to me," she gasped, barely able to breathe. "Don't get in that car. Something's wrong." His body tensed. Years in business had taught Brandon how to read people. This girl wasn't high. She wasn't messing with him for clout. This was genuine, full-body fear. He took a step back from the car. "I don't have time for games," the driver said, his hand subtly moving to close the door. "Let's go." Brandon held up a hand. "Wait!" Then something even stranger happened. The girl collapsed, right there on the pavement. Her legs gave out and she hit the ground, clutching her side in pain. A crowd formed. Someone called 911. But Brandon couldn't move. His instincts screamed to walk away. This wasn't his problem. But her words echoed louder. "Something's wrong." And then, like a cue from the universe, a loud pop sounded from under the car. Not a backfire, not a tire, something mechanical and sinister. Smoke began to snake from under the hood. The driver cursed and jumped back. People screamed. Someone shouted, "It's a bomb!" Chaos erupted, and Brandon finally realized this girl might have just saved his life. Smoke curled like a serpent from under the Bentley's hood. People were screaming. Someone shouted, "It's a bomb!" And in the middle of it all, the girl who warned him lay crumpled on the pavement. Brandon knelt beside the girl, the roar of panic crashing around him. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, voice cracking with urgency. Her face was pale, lips trembling, breath short. She blinked slowly. "I didn't know how else to stop you," she whispered. "I tried. I just couldn't let you die." The sirens were already howling in the distance. The driver, now white as a sheet, backed away, muttering something about engine trouble, but his voice didn't carry weight anymore. All eyes were on the girl and the man she'd saved. "Who are you?" Brandon asked, brushing her tangled curls from her forehead. She coughed weakly. "Nia," she murmured. "My name is Nia." Just then, a thunderous pop came from the Bentley, and a plume of fire burst from underneath. People screamed again, scattering like ants. Brandon shielded Nia's body with his own as heat licked at the air. The police and fire trucks arrived within seconds. Someone tried to pull Brandon away, but he wouldn't budge. The fire was quickly extinguished, and the area cordoned off. Within minutes, the bomb squad confirmed it wasn't an accident. It was sabotage. A timed incendiary device had been planted under the chassis. If Nia hadn't intervened, Brandon would have been in the car when it went off. He sat with that thought as Nia was loaded onto a stretcher. "She saved my life," he told the paramedic, his voice low. "Don't let her out of your sight." Later, at the hospital, Brandon sat in the waiting room alone. For once, no paparazzi, no fans, no assistant taking calls, just silence and guilt. He thought about how many times he'd passed people like Nia without a glance. He'd donated millions to shelters, food drives, education programs, but never once had he stopped for a girl screaming in the street. Until today. A nurse finally came out. "She's stable," she said, offering a kind smile. "Exhaustion, dehydration, bruised ribs, but she'll recover." Brandon exhaled, his body slumping. "Can I see her?" he asked. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. When he walked into the dim hospital room, Nia's eyes fluttered open. "You're still here?" she whispered, surprised. "I'm not going anywhere," Brandon said softly. "But I need to know. How did you know? About the car?" Nia looked away, silent. Then she said something that chilled him to his core. "Because they tried to kill me last week, and now they're coming for you too." "They tried to kill me last week," Nia whispered, her voice barely audible over the monitor's beeps. Brandon's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a girl on the street. This was a survivor. He pulled up a chair and sat down, eyes locked onto hers. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Everything." Nia took a shaky breath. "My mom used to clean offices. One day, she brought home a tablet someone had left behind, said she'd return it after the weekend. But when she turned it on, she saw something. I don't know what it was. Documents, videos, I don't know. But she freaked out." Brandon leaned in. "She told me not to tell anyone, said we were in danger. A few days later, I came home, and she was gone. Apartment ransacked, her phone smashed." Nia wiped her eyes with the hospital blanket. "I went to the police, but they said she probably just ran off. That's what they always say when it's someone like us." Brandon's jaw tightened. "I started hiding, sleeping in stairwells, parks, shelters when they'd let me in. But last week, a guy in a suit approached me. He said I knew too much. I didn't even know what he meant. I ran. That night, someone tried to grab me near an alley. I barely escaped." She stared at the ceiling, tears welling. "I thought maybe if I found someone important, someone people actually listened to, then maybe someone would care." Brandon was silent. That tablet, whatever was on it, was it tied to one of his companies, a competitor? The deeper Nia's story went, the more it felt like his life and hers weren't colliding by accident. They were already entangled. "What did the man look like?" Brandon asked. "White, mid-40s, gray suit, wore a pin with 3 gold stars. Military, maybe?" Brandon froze. That wasn't random. That was targeted. He had seen that symbol before, on classified defense contracts his company wasn't supposed to bid on. Something dirty was going on. And this girl was caught in the middle of it. He stood abruptly. "Nia, I'm getting you out of here. But no, you're not safe. And neither am I. But I've got resources, people, safe places." She looked at him, confused. "Why would you help me? I'm just—" Brandon's voice was firm. "You're the reason I'm alive right now. That makes you family." And with that, the billionaire tech mogul and the homeless teenage girl, 2 strangers from different worlds, stepped into the shadows together, ready to fight whatever darkness came. Brandon thought he had power, wealth, protection. But it wasn't until a homeless girl showed up screaming in the street that he realized he had enemies with longer arms than he ever imagined. The next 48 hours were a blur. Brandon had Nia moved to a secure private estate just outside Atlanta, guarded by trusted security. Cameras were installed, doctors brought in. Nia had a warm bed, fresh clothes, and 3 meals a day for the first time in months. But safety was temporary. His tech team began investigating the source of the sabotage. They traced the device in his Bentley to a shell company, one that had recently secured massive government defense contracts. A company that had, until 6 months ago, been partnered with Brandon's firm. He had terminated that contract quietly, after a whistleblower flagged ethical violations and illegal weapons development. That decision had saved his conscience, and now it seemed painted a target on his back. Nia, meanwhile, was slowly opening up. She had a sharp mind, photographic memory, and a knack for spotting details, like faces, logos, and dates. With her help, Brandon's team reconstructed the timeline. Someone had followed her, used her to send a message. But they failed. And now, Brandon had something they feared even more: truth. He released a statement to the media, brief, cautious. He thanked a young hero for saving his life, didn't name Nia, didn't hint at what was really happening. But it stirred attention. Reporters dug deeper. That's when the threats began: emails, untraceable calls. One night, a drone hovered just outside Nia's window before being shot down by security. This was war. But Brandon had spent his life building empires from nothing. Now he'd build something else, with Nia by his side. A movement. They started. A foundation called Code Red, dedicated to exposing corporate and government corruption. Brandon went public with his findings. With every broadcast, every post, Nia's story became harder to silence, and the world began to listen. She was no longer a homeless black girl screaming in the street. She was a whistleblower, a warrior, a beacon for every child failed by the system and the enemies. They were still coming, but now she wasn't running. She was rising. Next, the girl they left in the gutter was now on every screen in America. 6 months later,